Good morning, everyone. And here we are, July the 5th, moving into the second half of 2025. And I'm just thinking, reflecting on where I was 50 years ago. That was the 200th anniversary of our country's founding. And next year, 2026, that'll be the 250th. And I'm thinking, where was I 50 years ago during that celebration? And where will I be a year from now? Where will you be? And reflecting on that, it's quite a bit of time, 50 years. And I remember back in April of 1976, that's when I went to my first Amway opportunity. And maybe to back that up a little bit, just I think hearing the stories of other people can give people ideas of what it takes. And one of the things I probably want to say to kick this off is I've read in books, including Think and Grow Rich, this idea, the power of a decision, and that successful people, when they gather the information, they decide real quick and they're slow to change their mind thereafter. Unsuccessful people are very slow to decide and they're quick to change their mind thereafter. I started out fairly slow in my decision making on a lot of things, especially in my career. And as a kid, I was very shy. I was very happy just inside my own company. My bedroom resembled an electronics lab, had lots of stuff going on. And that was probably where I spent most of my time. I was very interested in that sort of thing and always thought that's going to be my career. But as time went on, I went to a dance, met Valerie, fell in love. I was 22, she was 20. We started our family, and I'm going really fast and going nowhere on a forklift. And a lot of the people working at that job, they were going to night school. And I can remember just thinking, that would be a long, arduous, man, that's going to take a long time to go to night school, but a lot of people did. And that's the key to success. I didn't want to stay there. However, I just started thinking about the military, and they had some really good schools. And looking at different ones, I went to all the different recruiters and did some research. It looked like the Navy had the best electronic schools. And it took me quite a while. And also, just this idea, I'd already started my family, but also I was moving along. Here I was driving a forklift at 24 years old and thinking, okay, go into the Navy. But that's where they have ships and you're away from your family a long time. And so I started visiting with them. And the Navy actually had a program where you wouldn't have to go on a ship. You would actually do training with the reserves. And pretty much everything I was asking for, they had. And so I asked for a duty on Whidbey Island, NAS Whidbey Island, the Naval Air Station, and I wanted to be an aviation electronic technician, and I could go to school, get the GI Bill, and immediately I would be working with electronics. And so after boot camp and in the Navy, here I was pretty much like I was in a teenager in my bedroom. I was sitting at a bench with all of this marvelous electronical stuff all around. However, on the other hand, work was 7 till 3, and during the winter, it was getting dark because it was up fairly north. In this room, because of security, no windows anywhere. There's fluorescent lights being overhead and being force fed. I'm not being real creative. Pretty much my whole career was working on the APN 153, which was a black box. And it was pretty cool because it had a lot of different things. It had radar, would send out 4 beams, and then it would compare the Doppler shift of those different beams to measure ground speed and drift angle and all this stuff. But pretty soon you would just, okay, this is the problem. I had it memorized, which thing, and you just mechanically move along. And it took about a year and a half to completely cure me of any love I had for electronics. And I'm thinking, okay, here I am at that point, 26 years old, 1976. And I'm thinking, do I want to do this as a career for 40 more years? And I'm thinking, and so I just started looking, searching, thinking, what do I want to do with my life? And about that time, one of my Navy friends invited me over to their house. And we thought it was just going to be us and them. And so Valerie and I came over to their house, and I can remember just having on a t-shirt and Levi's, but I noticed there's quite a few cars parked around there. So we went into the living room, and here's all of these people. And interestingly, the first thing I noticed, they were all dressed up pretty nice. The ladies had dresses on, the guys had ties, and looking a little further with all these Samsonite chairs set up in the living room, all of them had their scriptures. And I'm trying to remember, he didn't say anything about anything like that. And I thought, well, okay, this is great. This is good stuff too. But after a little bit of time, it seemed like there was supposed to be a deadline to start. And that came and went, and people are saying, well, what? Okay, let's get started. And then this, well, we've got something special. And a little while later, another couple came in, and they were very smartly dressed, and they brought in an easel and a big board, and they started talking about some ideas, business ideas. And I remember just a little bit of different feeling as far as the atmosphere, but people were polite and listened. And he started drawing circles, and he talked about this business where you join and you can recruit other people. And you was a circle, and he had six people or six circles under that, and they get in. And then under those six people, they had four under that and two under that. It was just multiplying out. And I remember just being totally captivated by this idea of teaching somebody something and teaching them how to teach something, and this geometric expansion. And the more they talked, the more excited I got. And then they said something I'd never heard of, and they wrote it out, Amway. I'd never heard of that. It looked like everybody else had, and they got mad and left. I found out later on that was supposed to be their weekly Bible study, and it turned into an opportunity meeting. I was very interested, and they gave me a couple of books, a couple of cassette tapes. I went home, listened to the tapes. I got so excited. I got so excited that I got in and really didn't do much. I dabbled. One of the things, I was pretty shy, and it was about reaching out and contacting people. And so not a lot happened for about a year. I got calls from what I discovered later on was my upline telling me that I should go to some meetings and stuff. And I just kind of went along, and not much happened until almost a year later. I invited one of my Navy friends at that same work center, and he came to a meeting that my upline presented, and they got on fire, which in turn got me on fire. And all of a sudden, things started happening, and I started working. And for the next couple of years, I personally recruited over 50 people. Now, one of the things I think that really transformed my life also was getting out of my shell, learning how to talk to people. And this idea that profoundly affected me, that I still practice and think about every day, is this idea I first got from a cassette tape called The Strangest Secret with Earl Nightingale, where he talked about we become what we think about. And then also the idea that we can direct our thoughts, which directs our lives. Wow, what a powerful idea. We become what we think about. And the more we think about something, the more permanent it becomes, and it becomes a part of us. And that changes our life. And so where you will be in the future depends on what you think about. And you can change your thinking by what you put in your head through cassette tapes. That was a big thing, reading books, associating with people. And oh my goodness. And Jim Rohn, I was introduced to him, and he talked about you are the average of the five people you associate most with in all of the ways, whether it's your bank book or your thoughts, anything at all. You're the average of the people you associate with. Zig Ziglar later said, basically, how do you get the flu? I'll hang around people with the flu. How do you become successful? Hang around people that are successful. Well, I started hanging around with people that were really possibility thinkers. Also, I was hanging around people that worked for Northwestern Industrial Lamp Company. My upline direct, he was doing really well with that. And about this time, it's getting close to leaving the Navy. I had about a year left, and I'm thinking if I could just build my business big enough, and I'd just go full time. But that looked more like what they talked about, a 3 to 5 year plan. And although I'd recruited a lot of people, it was more just a churning. But I just thought, well, I guess that's the way it is. And so I'll just keep doing that. But we started getting a gathering of people, and a lot of my friends, they were all starting to leave. And Dean Annabelle, my upline, working for Northwestern Industrial Lamp, he said that you ought to do that because you're out there meeting business people. You're calling on businesses. And so you're meeting quality people that are already business oriented and the straight commission, nobody's watching you. You're just out there. And so if you need to go to a meeting, whatever, your schedule is yours as long as you produce, but you got the flexibility. And listening to Jim Rohn talks about profits are better than wages, where you can actually build up a customer base and actually gain equity in your business in a way, working for this company. And I remember thinking, well, that's earlier in my life. I remember just this reflection. Well, as a missionary in England, I did that for a couple of years. That helped me get out of my shell too. But I remember thinking, I love doing this because I believe in it. But one thing is for sure, I'm never going into sales. And so going back up to the present, I'm thinking sales. Well, maybe that wouldn't be such a bad idea. I like the idea. And then also light bulbs, though, that sounds crazy. But on the other hand, everybody uses them. It's common. And then I learned something really profound, and it just really hit with me, is that people do business with people they know and trust. And that was what I heard with this business is everybody needs lighting. And if you're nice, if they like you, if you develop a relationship and you give good service, well, probably a lot of them will buy from you too. And so it just made sense. And so one of my friends, in fact, the guy that I recruited in Amway that really got me going, Doug Robinson, he preceded me out of the Navy for, probably about 7 months or something like that, maybe 8 months, somewhere around in there. And so he took that step. He started working at Northwestern Industrial Lamp Company. And it worked out really well because he was from the Portland area. And the opportunity, the territory they gave him was Vancouver, just across the river. And so he was basically coming home. Myself, that company wasn't even in Utah where we grew up. And on the other hand, I'd recruited several people in Amway, and several of those people became light bulb salesmen for Northwestern Industrial Lamp. And so I'm thinking I'm probably getting a reputation for giving some good leads. And so as time goes on, I'm introduced to Steve Tomicelli, their manager, and talking to him, and he says, "Yeah, we have a territory. I think it'll be ready when you're out in Twin Falls, Idaho." And so I'm thinking, okay, and I was a little bit familiar with that area, and I thought that would be a good place to live and everything. So I'm getting all ready, and so it's not quite 2 months before I'm getting out of the Navy, and so I'm called down to interview. So we drive down to see Steve Tomicelli and have an interview with him, and he's a real pleasant guy, and I think everything's going fine. But after probably about a half hour, he says, "I'm sorry, but I don't think you've got what it takes to be good in this business." And I'm just, so I'm driving home and just thinking, wow, what am I going to do? Because I've been thinking, okay, my upline, Dean Annabo, Doug Robinson, several other people, Alex Macbeth, they're all doing really well. A couple of those people are folks that I referred. And why I'm just really getting frustrated. He's interfering with my destiny. And so Doug calls and says, "Well, how'd the interview go with Steve Tomicelli?" I couldn't tell him that I didn't even make the cut. I just thought, oh goodness. And so I just said, I've got to go interview with him again, which also some of the things that's so important to success is persistence and determination. But I'm thinking, here's the guy that decides my fate. But I think, okay, I got to do it. So I call him up and I say, "Can I meet with you again?" And of course, it's a different atmosphere now. "What for?" I says, I really need to get with you." And so I was able to get down and secure another appointment. So I drive back down and the whole atmosphere is different. He's not really friendly, pretty straight faced. And it all came to the point where he just drills into me, looking at me, and says, "What makes you think you can sell?" And he's just looking at me. And I'm trying to be And I'd heard this idea that the first person that answers loses. And so I'm just looking back at him and I decide, I'm not even going to blink. I'm just going to keep looking at him with a smile. And then finally, I just say, what makes you think I can't? And I keep looking at him, smiling. And all of a sudden, he just says, okay, you can have the Tri-Cities. And I didn't know what that was. We went home on the map, looked around. It wasn't anywhere. I found out later on it's not on the map. It's Kennewick, Pasco, and Richland. And so I thought, wow, okay. And so I called Doug Robinson, and so that's where I'm going. And so, okay, get out of the Navy with the money that they gave us and everything. We got a U-Haul truck and drove down to the Tri-Cities. And so that's the first time I'd ever been there, was in my U-Haul truck, and found a small apartment to live. And there we are. And then I go down to Salem, Oregon, where the lighting company is, to get training. And the training is 3 whole days learning about light bulbs and all of that sort of thing. But there was 4 other guys with me in that school, so we were all starting together. And a lot of it was just what they are and everything, and why ours are better and all of that sort of thing. But there was 2 things that profoundly stuck with me, and I think they were key. Jerry Anderson, who was the president of the company, still a fairly young man, was a millionaire because of lighting. It was a pretty impressive company. They had over 100 salespeople, and they were doing some pretty good volume. And it was really fun seeing light bulbs that actually said Northwestern on it. But the thing that hit me was at the end, Jerry Anderson came in and he said something. He says, okay, part of the job is you need to call me every single day. I want to hear from you. Call me, talk to me, tell me how it's going. And then also, I need you to, when you make a log, you're going to make a log of all the people you see every day. And I want a carbon paper on that so that I get a copy of your log and mail that into me every week, and we'll review that. And so those are the 2 things that really hit with me. Call me every day. He said he did, said I had to do it. So I did, and to make a log. And so I did that. Now going out there, and all of a sudden, here it is. I'm seeing all of these people, and it's not working. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, this is scary. Straight commission and seeing all these people. The apartment complex we got was the cheapest one I could find. And so there was, in the parking lot, there was cars on blocks. There was that. And I remember coming home at night thinking, I'm making less money than probably anybody in this whole complex, hardly anything at all. I just, oh my goodness, what have I done? And I'm just thinking, what can I do? But I'm calling Jerry, and oh my goodness. And so they had it scheduled for a guy to come and train me. And this is about 2 weeks into the game. And I'm not selling hardly anything. I'm making probably $100 a week. So just little tiny orders, not going anywhere really fast. And yet, on the other hand, Doug Robinson, all these other people, they're doing really well. And I'm thinking maybe Steve Tomacelli's right. And no, it can't be that. I can't do this. And so I just thinking, what can I do? And one of the big things, Zig Ziglar, in one of his talks, he talks about straight commission salespeople and farmers. They probably pray at least as much as anybody else. And I certainly was doing that. I decided to really take it all the way. And so, okay, I've got a sales manager coming Monday. And I decided, wow, I need some help with this. And so I actually fasted Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. And I'm just, oh, please help me. And so the sales manager comes. And so we're going out together. And all morning, we're seeing all these people. Nothing's happening. Nothing. And on one side, I'm saying, see, it ain't so easy here. You're not making it either with your big skill. But on the other hand, I'm thinking, oh my goodness, this is not a good confirmation of everything. And then I found out later on that was just a dead area, and nobody had ever made it with that company there. And Steve Tomacelli knew I wasn't going to make it. That's why I didn't go to Twin Falls. He didn't want to waste a good territory on somebody that wasn't going to make it anyway. He just sent me there to die. I just, oh, when I found that out. But on the other hand, I'm just thinking, oh, please. And so that afternoon, we're out and we go into Twin City Foods, and it's a pretty big facility. And my sales manager that's out with me, he's saying all this stuff, and all of a sudden the guy puts in a couple of $1,000 order, which a commission to me is a few $100. And I thought, oh my goodness. And then all of a sudden it just broke free. He actually put me out on my own, and all of a sudden I made 4 or 5 sales. I made about $800 that afternoon. And he took us out to dinner at the Red Lion in Richland, and I just that night. And all the rest of the week, I just went, wow. Oh my goodness. And so I learned a lot of things. I think fundamentally in this business is don't give up. Persistence and determination are omnipotent. That's just such a powerful idea. The other idea is if other people are making it, you can make it too. Another really important idea is the power of prayer. If it's important to you, it's important to your Heavenly Father. And I really, really believe in that he was actually concerned and interested in a light bulb salesman that wasn't making it, as I asked. But I think one of the most important things is plug yourself into somebody that knows how to do it. So here's Jerry Anderson, who as a teenager started working for Duratest. Duratest was the big industrial lamp company. And he got this idea that, hey, maybe I could do that too. And so he contracted with a company and had his own labels made, and went out there and started his own company. So he knew how to do this. And so talking to him every day, I talked to him every day for a couple of years. And I learned what he said and did, which worked. And I said and did the same thing. And so much of it also was, at first, I was calling on up to 50 people a day. And I realized I wasn't doing that idea. People do business with people they know and trust. At first, I would just say, hi, I'm Dave Johnson. I'm with Northwest Industrial Lamp Company. Is there anything you need as far as lighting? And it's, oh, I don't think so. Later on, just as an example, I remember calling on a business, and I was able to get in and meet one of the main guys, and he was just a really nice guy. And he says, oh, sorry, there was a light bulb salesman that just came here last week, and we got everything we need. I said, oh, that's okay. Hey, tell me a little bit about yourself and your business, maybe next time. And we wound up talking for about a half an hour, and it just really clicked. And I could tell he wanted to buy something. And so he says, well, wait, we've got an office that has these really low glare, kind of a green jade light. Do you have any of those? I said, oh, as a matter of fact, I do. And they happen to be on sale. So I wound up with a several $100 order right after someone else sold, just because he liked me. And so my sweet spot was calling on about 20 people a day. And I averaged about 3 sales every day, calling on about 20. And I think about that. Okay, the business we're in right now, Avini, you'll do better than that, I believe. 3 out of 20. I think you could do better than that. But if you did that, you could still become immensely successful. But that was just a number that kind of stayed with me throughout the career. And as I did that, I built up over time lots of clients. And eventually, what happened is boxes would come in, and the boxes would say Interelectric Corporation. And I got thinking, he started his own company. I wonder how much he's making every time I make a sale. And I contacted Interelectric Company. And anyway, long story short is pretty soon there was my own company there. And so I started myself, which is the bane of every company. If you're a plumber or a realtor or whatever business you have, one of the things is you train people to be really good, and then they become your competition. And I think, wow, what a business model. And so this idea of being in network marketing, where you can train your people and they could actually come to you, and or if they think in their mind, I'm learning some great stuff, but I don't want you to hold me back. I could do better than that. And you could smile at them and say, you know what? I think you are, and I'll help you. You don't have to worry about losing people. It's just the most wonderful, pure, equitable business environment you can be in is this kind of business that we have compared to anything out there. But again, just these ideas of basically just decide you're going to do it hang around other people that are doing it, learn from them, call them every day and make a list and log your list, keep that list when you make contacts, find a place where you can keep that and track it so you know what's happening so you can follow up. Because so often, what I found is this idea that once in a while I would walk into a business and they would buy lights right off the bat. But that was seldom. It was a pleasant surprise. I totally expected to have to see them three, four, five, six, seven times before the time was right, where they knew me and they needed the product and they decided to get it from me. And so kind of think about that. People do business with people they know, like, and trust. And so that's the low-hanging fruit in your Avini business, is you could think, oh, I don't want to talk to my friends and my family. I don't want to bother them. Well, what you need to do is attitude is everything. First off, you need to be thinking, I'm not begging for a favor, as Dennis Williams says, I'm offering a gift. And so you need to be thinking, I'm not trying to sell something, I'm trying to give them something. And that's why this business works so well, is because if you really truly believe in something, you just inherently want to share it with all of the people that you love. And so if you have the mindset of we're offering something and we found something wonderful that could change their whole life, and you truly believe that, that will communicate with you. And so it isn't like I'm trying to get them. You want everybody to know about that. And then the thing I love about this is you don't have to go out and knock on doors and everything. It's just picking up the phone and reaching out to people who you already know, who like you and trust you. And so when you say, I've discovered something new, would you like to look at this? And then essentially let them be introduced to Rick Deitch and our marvelous product. Let him explain that. And so essentially, the job is get really good at contacting your friends and people and making new friends and getting them curious enough to look at the tools that we have. We've got this amazing app that's at shareables, and you think, okay, what are they interested in? And there might be something specific that you know about them and maybe a challenge that they have. And so you can recommend something, but almost always I start with a fundamental idea that we've got a problem and it's our environment, heavy metals, toxins, things like that. It hasn't always been that way, but today and every day after, more and more bad stuff is being introduced to our environment and it's affecting us. I just love this idea of the healthy cell concept, that if all of your cells were healthy, you could not be sick. And the myriad of diseases that are out there, lots of them, essentially, you could describe them as cellular malfunction. Whatever that disease is, it's describing symptoms of malfunctioning cells in a particular body system or whatever. But if all of the cells in that body system were working properly, there would be no symptoms, there would be no dis-ease. And so how do you have healthy cells? Well, simply, we all know, give them what they need. And so there's a lot of nutritional products out there. Also, it's critical, just a good night's sleep, lots of pure, clean water. Important, you can't replace a poor diet with a few vitamins. You need to eat real food and do all of that. But the critical thing that Avini offers is the thing that before we can add a lot of good, we got to take out the bad. And that's what our company is we take out the bad, but also we've got some wonderful things to add to the good. Oh, I just love our shake as an example, but we got specialty nutrition products that support a lot of important body systems that we're all interested in, and we're going to have more. But I just think in my mind, oh my goodness, here we are going into the second half of 2025. This could be your best year ever as far as business. And oh my goodness, we've got a 3-year plus track record of just amazing growth. The wonderful story to tell that here we have products that actually in other forms have been out in the marketplace upwards of 20 years. Rick has formulated billions of dollars of products over the years. They've already gone around the world, including Cell Defender and other versions. But today, rather than being a vendor or licensing product to other people who kept dropping the ball, that was the missing part in all of us that have been working with it. What we have is amazing products that have total control from the raw materials to incorporating them into the product and distributing them all under one roof. So we've got the biochemist who invents it, the lab, the manufacturing, distribution, all in control. And all of these moving parts are all owned by the same people. So we've got an enormous competitive advantage and pure whole products without a bunch of fillers. And the best comp plan I've ever seen. We can pay people more because we don't have to pay all the middleman to get the stuff going. So the timing's right. The market's immeasurable. The opportunity is yours. And as Jerry Anderson told me all of those years ago, call me every day, make a list, and do it. Go to work. That's it. You can do this. You can learn this. You become like the people you associate with. We're a great group of people. And if you hang on to the momentum that we're building, you'll be drug along with that. But also be a leader. Leaders are momentum makers. And so don't wait for someone else. What if they don't come? So just get involved, actively reach out to your upline. You can do this. You really can. And say your prayers. That's the greatest source of strength there is. Just believe in the rightness and the goodness of this and look for people who are looking for you. Not everybody's going to do it. It is a numbers game, but there's magic and power in the numbers, like the compounding of doing something day after day. You get better at it, but also it is the numbers. So as an example, if I'm 3 out of 20 and I only talk to 7 people, maybe I'll get one, because that's right where the math is starting to be in my favor if I got to 7. But so many people only talk to a couple of people and nothing happens, and they think, well, I guess it's not for me. No, you just didn't do it enough. So give yourself the chance. What I would recommend is right now and through the rest of this year, just think, okay, I've decided I'm going to do this. That's it, period. So you're not waking up every day thinking, gee, am I going to do this or not? That's already been decided. And a decided mind is very attractive. You're going to be able to attract people if you've already decided. And so if you're just thinking, I wonder, I'll call these people, and if they get excited, then I will. No, you're going to do it. And so just say, I'm going to do it. That's it, period. I'm going to run as fast as I can between now and December. And on December 31st, think in your mind, wow, I'm glad I did this, rather than thinking, gee, I haven't really done much, and so the same old. No, this is the new you, working really hard, making lots of calls every day as though you had to do it. Yeah, let's do this. Thanks. Love you all, and have a wonderful rest of the day and year. This is going to be big, and you're going to be a big part of it because you're growing with it. Take care.